strong.
Welcome back to Crypto for Freedom, where we talk about gaining financial freedom through the cryptocurrency markets. Today we're talking about Bitcoin, we're talking about Dogecoin, we're talking about gold, we're talking about the Bitcoin to gold ratio. And if you want to hear my thoughts on Dogecoin, make sure to stick around to the end of the video. Now let's jump into Bitcoin. Bitcoin on the daily chart is having a pretty big red candle today, being down 6.3% on the day. That's a pretty big move for a daily candle, and it does look like we are falling out of this bear flag, just like I was talking about, where we've kind of made the pull here and then started making the flag here, making higher highs and higher lows, but eventually we broke out of this bear flag to the downside. We actually broke out here and then came up and back tested, and now we're having a substantial drop. Now Bitcoin still does have a chance to go up from here if we can actually hold above this 80,295, which is this low right over here, this low right here. If we can hold above that low, then maybe we still do come back up into this bear flag and invalidate it to the upside. But at this point, with 540 days past the halving being in, it seems like the top of the market is actually in for Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin has still not made a lower low, okay? So zooming out on the weekly chart, we can see that Bitcoin finds a low and then tends to go up from there. So we found a low here, 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 and we still haven't broke this most recent low right here, which I actually marked with this blue line. So first we need to break below this low here at 80,295, and then we need to break below this low here at 74,776. Now, I do think that's what's going to happen, because if we, take the price target for this bear flag pattern from the breakdown, we can see that the target for this pattern is actually down here at, let's draw another horizontal ray here, at 56,809. So that's actually the price target for this bearish pattern. And if we go back to the 2021 bear market, you can actually see that Bitcoin stayed in this once it found a low here on January 24th. Bitcoin stayed in this bear flag for 98 days. And once it fell out of the bear flag after 98 days, Bitcoin, actually the price of Bitcoin dropped pretty substantially, 30% over the next 2 weeks, and over the next 7 weeks, Bitcoin dropped 52%. So does that mean we're going to be seeing a 52% drop for Bitcoin over the next 7 weeks, and bringing Bitcoin all the way down to, let's see here, 52% down. I got to adjust the scale real quick. Yeah, that could bring us all the way down to this bottom line at $41,000. And I mean, it kind of looks like we're setting a lower high here for Bitcoin, seeing a high and then now seeing a lower high here. And once we set the lower high last time, that's when we saw the big drop. And Bitcoin ends up making these descending triangles where it forms this triangle into the bear market, and then once it breaks out of that, it explodes to the upside. Once it breaks out of that, it explodes to the upside. So here's our other triangle from our last bear market, and we explode to the upside. And to me, it looks like we're also creating that same exact pattern, creating this descending triangle to the downside. And once we break out of that, then we should be off to the races to the upside. And last time and actually the time before, we were in that descending triangle. Once we hit this line at the top, we went straight to the bottom. You can see it again here. Once we actually hit the line, we went straight to the bottom. And over here, we didn't. It's not quite the same on this chart, but it's similar. I mean, once we kind of formed this downtrend here, you know, we pretty much went straight to the bottom. So, you know, it looks like, you know, we could be seeing a massive drop for Bitcoin, you know, coming up in the very near term, like the next, like within the next 7 weeks. Like I said, we could be seeing a 52% drop from this bear flag all the way down to $42,000 for Bitcoin. Now imagine spending $400 on 1% of a Bitcoin and being able to accumulate in that range. Now I kind of set this up pretty easily for you guys to read here. We got, you know, you want to be buying in the red box down here. Now obviously we didn't stay in the red box for long back here in 2019 because, you know, they wanted people to FOMO back into this rally and then get wrecked in COVID. That's what they wanted, and that's what I'm sure happened to a lot of people. But if you would have been patient, you could have bought a little bit here, and you could have bought a little bit here. And then you sell in the green box. So you want to buy in the red box, sell in the green box. So right now we're going to be approaching the next red box, which is going to be the bear market for Bitcoin, and that's when you're going to want to buy your Bitcoin. Now, that's Bitcoin. What does that mean for Dogecoin? And what does that mean for gold? Let's flip over to gold real quick. It doesn't really mean anything for gold because gold is its own separate asset class, but look at this freaking chart for gold, you guys. This chart is out of control for gold. $5,360 gold is pretty incredible. And it took a long time to get to that. Like if you would have bought the peak back over here at $2,000 per coin, you would have had to wait, let's see here. Yeah, 1,344 days just to get your money back. And then another 665 days after that to see this peak. So you have to be very patient when you're in the precious metals, you know, waiting 2,000 days for big spikes up, where in Bitcoin, you know, it doesn't take 2,000 days. It only takes, you know, 1,000 days. So you got to be a lot more patient in gold, have a long-term conviction. Flipping over to the Bitcoin gold chart, you can see that right now, one Bitcoin will buy you 15.65 ounces of gold, which has substantially decreased. We're actually in a Bitcoin bear market against gold right now, which I believe, what does it last? 427 days there. So we're getting close to the end of this Bitcoin bear market against gold, you guys. And I think, you know, we could be setting up for a big head and shoulders pattern for Bitcoin to make a recovery against gold in the coming months and years, you know, forming this inverted head and shoulders pattern here with the left shoulder here. And it looks like we're coming down to form the head right now. You know, the head could come a little deeper. You know, we could come all the way down to, you know, 12 ounces of gold per Bitcoin, which I don't think we're going to go much lower than that because as you guys can see, at the point we're at now, we'd already have to be breaking back into the bear market range from the last bear market. So, I mean, it is possible, it is likely, but are we going to break, you know, below 12 ounces of gold and come back into this region over here? I just don't think that's really like that likely. In my opinion, I think we're going to end up holding this 12 ounces of gold per Bitcoin ratio and heading higher from there. We've already broken through this long-term legacy trend line here very recently that we haven't been able to break through since we've been above it back in June of 2017 for Bitcoin against gold. And, you know, it seems like that could just be a deviation where the price, you know, does actually end up snapping back here into this ascending triangle, which is a massive ascending triangle. And I talked about this previously on the channel, you know, this big ascending triangle here. Oh, what happened? Here we go. Yeah, this big ascending triangle here. There's a top, flat top, and ascending bottom. That makes an ascending triangle, which is a very bullish pattern. And as you can see, Bitcoin's life over, compared to gold, we actually have only gone up and to the right. So, I do think that we're going to continue that trend of up and to the right against gold. We're just in a bear market against gold right now for Bitcoin. So, I do think that the price of Bitcoin may end up rebounding and coming back up into this, maybe to the top of this trend line and then forming the right shoulder. And then from there, it's off to the races as Bitcoin enters into its next, big parabolic push in 2027, 2028, and starts to outperform gold again. So, if you guys are a gold bug, just realize that now might be a pretty decent time to take some profits, and it's only costing you 15 ounces of gold to get a full Bitcoin right now. And, in my opinion, in the next bull run, it's going to cost you way more than 38 ounces. So Bitcoin is cheap, very cheap right now compared to gold. So if you're wanting to get into gold and get into Bitcoin and get out of gold, it might be a good time now, or at least very soon, to start dollar cost averaging out of your position in gold and back into Bitcoin, or into Bitcoin for the first time if that's what you're going to do. So if we look at a price target for this kind of head and shoulders pattern, it's from the head to the neckline. And that would bring us, that could bring Bitcoin up to, 80 ounces of gold per Bitcoin. And the even bigger pattern here, this, this massive rising wedge here, if we take a price target for that, this could be over the very long term, but look at that, 300 ounces of gold for one Bitcoin. So if you guys are holding on to Bitcoin and you want to get gold in the future, it could be a good opportunity to just hold on right now, maybe buy the dip and accumulate yourself some Bitcoin over the next year as we enter further into this bear market, and then just get ready for a massive moonshot for Bitcoin, because I do think it's going to the moon as the US dollar continues to deteriorate into basically zero, as the US government continues to print money. Now, what does this mean for Dogecoin? All right, I know you guys have been waiting long enough. Let's flip over to Dogecoin. All right, so Dogecoin did just have this death cross with the blue line flipping over to the purple line. And last time that happened, back over here in August of 2022, the price actually pumped into the death cross and then sold off afterwards. So we actually saw a 30% sell off after the death cross. So this time, zooming in over here to our recent price action, you can see that the price did the same thing where it pumped up into the death cross and then sold off afterwards. And what kind of moves did we get over here? We got a 36% move followed by a 27% move. So that's pretty crazy. And a lot of time actually has elapsed since the peak. If you take a look, we actually have seen over 400 days since the peak over here in December of 2024. So the peak in April of 2021 all the way to the bottom was 413 days for Dogecoin, and we're actually rapidly approaching 413 days. In fact, we just passed it a week ago. It was 413 days from the bottom, and I mean, I don't know. I think the price is going to go quite a bit lower, just because last time, and every other time, we've seen a 90+% retracement for Dogecoin. I just think it's going to be the same this time. Even though it's playing out a little bit differently time-wise, I do think that Dogecoin will end up seeing a 90% retracement. It could actually come down below 5 cents to maybe 4.6 over the imminent medium to short term. And, it's just not a good time to buy Dogecoin right now. If you are sitting on Dogecoin and, Dogecoin is getting way cheaper, or Dogecoin is losing a lot of value compared to Bitcoin right now. As you can see on this chart, this is the 1/Doge Bitcoin chart. It costs you $729,000 Dogecoin for one Bitcoin. And I do believe that is going to continue to lose value and continue to cost more and more Dogecoin for one Bitcoin. And we see another head and shoulders pattern here, inverted head and shoulders on the chart. bringing a price target for Doge Bitcoin up to possibly, 1.5 million Dogecoin for a Bitcoin. So it's just not time to buy Bitcoin, or it's not time to buy Dogecoin yet, you guys. It's better to be in Bitcoin, the long-term hard asset. And then when you're, accumulate that and taking a look at the 7-year cycle theory, we can see this is an inverted chart of the 1 over Doge Bitcoin. You can see that, right now, 50137, that corresponds with 729,000 Doge per Bitcoin. So I think Doge is going to end up, against Bitcoin, going to end up losing a lot more value, breaking through this downward trend line right here and possibly heading even lower. That's when we're going to end up seeing that, that 1.5 million Doge per Bitcoin. And that's actually when you're going to want to buy your Dogecoin, you guys. So you want to accumulate Bitcoin in the bear market in this red box, and then take a look over at the 1 over Doge Bitcoin chart, or no, the Doge over Bitcoin chart, and then watch for this yellow line to break. Hold on to your Bitcoin, and then when the time's right, when you can get just a metric buttload of Dogecoin for 1 Bitcoin, that's when you trade just a little bit of your Bitcoin for Dogecoin. That way you don't go too far out on the risk curve. And that's how you're going to win in these markets, you guys. So if you like the video, make sure to come back to the channel, come back to Crypto for Freedom. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. Are we heading into a 1-year bear market right now for Bitcoin, or are we about to see a super cycle and prices are going to go astronomical? Is Bitcoin going to follow gold up into the bear market, or is this pretty much the end? Is Dogecoin going to skyrocket, or are we going to see 5 cents back down in the fish tank? Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. If you guys made it this far in the video, make sure you comment Dogecoin rules in the chat to let me know you made it this far in the video. Make sure to check out all my other videos in my playlist in the link below. Comment your thoughts, and just remember, none of this is financial advice. Always do your own research and begin with the end in mind. And with that, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.